You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where we are less than 2 weeks away from our exciting election, ladies and gentlemen. Only 13 days, and this will all be happening. We have been waiting and waiting for this to happen, for us to finally have that third election, and it is coming closer. And we are still waiting to see what can potentially be a game changer in our election. And perhaps we've finally found it. Perhaps it could be the coronavirus that everyone is talking about. So far, thank God, in Israel, no one has this virus. There is not a single person in the country that we know of that has the coronavirus. There's 13 days until the election, and it could happen. You never know. There are constantly people coming into Israel from the Far East. Israel was the first country that ended flights to and from China. That ended up hurting the Israeli economy a lot, but it took that precaution, and it made a lot of sense. Israel's economy has definitely been hurt by the coronavirus. El Al has suffered a lot of losses, as have other airlines, because of the coronavirus. But Israel stopped flights to and from China. They have not stopped flights to and from other countries around. What they've said is that people that were in these countries need to be isolated for 14 days upon their arrival in Israel. And as we said before, they're 13 days before the election. Now, how are they enforcing that is the problem. They have no way of enforcing this 14-day period of isolation. They have no way of making sure that the people who come back off a plane from Hong Kong or Thailand don't go and hug their spouse or their kids, and don't go to work the following day. And that can potentially be a very serious problem. Until now, Israelis have tried to avoid Asian people, whether they've been in Asia or not. They have no way of knowing, but Asian people don't look the same as a lot of Israelis do. And if you see somebody Asian, people cross the street. If they see somebody Asian sitting on a bus or a train, they'll go and sit somewhere else, and that's terrible to the Asian people, and they don't deserve it. Whether we have Asian people who are here as diplomats and as construction workers, and all kinds of reasons for them to be here, and they haven't been treated very nice, though it's somewhat understandable. But plenty of Israelis that don't look Asian in any way go to Thailand to relax, or go to Hong Kong on business. How are people going to protect themselves from them? You don't know what they look like. So what is Israel doing? Well, it's considering making there be polling places specifically for people in isolation. Not for people who would get the virus, God forbid, those people probably wouldn't be able to vote, but for the people who cannot go to regular polling station. They might have these polling stations at health clinics or in other places, and not where current polling stations are, is what was discussed yesterday in a meeting of the Director General of the Health Ministry and the Director General of the Central Elections Committee. So that is something that's strongly being considered. But let's think about what could happen if, God forbid, someone did get the virus. People would panic. People would stay home. People wouldn't vote. We would finally have the game changer that we've needed all along in this election. If you look back at the polls, going back to the beginning of the election, there hasn't been anything that's affected how people vote. The polls have pretty much stayed the same, very similar to the makeup of our current Knesset. If you look at the numbers, there's still 56 seats on the right, 56 seats on the left, counting the Arabs, and 8 seats for Avigdor Lieberman's Israel Beitenu party, whose views are difficult to understand. Please listen to my show from last week where we talked to Eli Avidar, member of Knesset of the Israel Beitenu party, to try to understand that better. We've been waiting all along to have some kind of game changer. Look, people have not had anything that's affected their vote. The Prime Minister of Israel got indicted, and nobody cared. We had the deal of the century revealed in Washington, and that didn't affect how people voted either. We've had all kinds of mistakes by politicians. Benny Gantz, in his weekend interviews, called the interviewer on Channel 12, Donna Weiss, called her Daphna. He referred to the election in April. It's in March, Benny. If you think the election is in April, you're in big trouble. Netanyahu has made his share of mistakes. He's tired too. He's referred to a government that can't be formed with Abu Mazen. I don't think there's going to be a government formed with Abu Mazen. Bibi, he got Abu Mazen confused with Ahmed Tibi. He's gotten Benny Gantz confused with Ehud Olmert. He seems to have gotten the impression that Donald Trump is running for Knesset with Likud. If you look at last week's at the campaign ads that were on TV last night, if you look at the ads of Likud, the only politician that you see almost as much as Netanyahu is Donald Trump. I got news for you, Bibi. Donald Trump is not a citizen of Israel. He can't run. He cannot be a Knesset member, no matter how much you might want him to. So people are making their mistakes. It's not having any impact. It's not changing how people vote. So perhaps the coronavirus will, if people, you don't even need the virus to get here, God forbid. All you need are rumors. Maybe a rumor that someone in Dimona happened to have been in Hong Kong a couple weeks ago, and that would be enough to make people there be very worried, make people not vote. Oh no, I live within an hour of Dimona, so maybe I should stay home on election day. So let's do the math about who could be affected by this. Well, the richest voters would be more likely to go to China are blue and white voters. I'm not making this up. There's actual data on this, that wealthier people are more likely to vote for blue and white. Then again, that's to China or Hong Kong for business. There's plenty of IDF soldiers who get released and then need to relax and go to Thailand. Well, they're more likely to vote for Likud. They're more likely to vote for Yisrael Beitenu, maybe for Yamina or for the Otzma Yehudit party further to the right. And so maybe that balances out. Then again, we've never had an election on a Monday in like 30 years. Once before, around then. The reason why we have elections on Tuesdays is because they have elections on Tuesdays in America, and we copy America. But there's another reason. If you have an election on a Tuesday, it's the middle of the week. It's harder to take a long weekend. So people are more likely to be home. I've got plenty of friends who are saying, hey, the election's on Monday? Are you telling me I'd miss only one day of work? We're off from work on election day in Israel. Sunday is the only day of work that would be missed. People can leave the country on Thursday evening and come back early Tuesday morning and miss only one day of work. I've got friends who are going to be going to Greece or Cyprus, who are going to be taking their family to the Dead Sea or to Eilat. Who is more likely to do that, to take an expensive vacation like that? The answer is blue and white voters, so maybe they balance them out. I don't know. Can you balance out the blue and white voters that aren't voting because of the election being on Monday with the blue and white voters that aren't voting because they're in isolation because of the coronavirus? I don't know. Then again, the health ministry is talking about putting these polling stations for the people in isolation, so they won't be there to be balanced out anymore. So all I'm saying is that the coronavirus could end up having an impact on the election. All they need is fake news of somebody potentially maybe being able to get the virus. I want to clarify, I'm not saying the coronavirus is a good thing. I am saying that having a game changer would be a good thing because we need a government. But of course, having a virus outbreak would be much worse than not having a government. So let's hope that coronavirus stays far, far away from Israel, and I hope that the people who've gotten the virus anywhere around the world get healed. I hope the virus gets out of China and everywhere around China. Corona, go away. Don't ever come again another day. But that is the impact on the Israeli election. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. After the break, we're going to be talking about how to form a government in Israel.
Hi, this is Eve Harrow, host of Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. You can hear a new show from me every Sunday, and every day of the week, shows from another one of my very talented fellow show hosts. Reach me, Eve, at thelandofisrael.com, and keep listening, everybody. We love your feedback. The Land of Israel, coming at you every day, every week. That's the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com.
And we're back here on the Land of Israel Network, on thelandofisrael.com, where we talked in the first part of our show about the impact of the coronavirus on Israel. But that's the election. The election, I think that the people who've been following Israeli politics over the last year have noticed that the results don't matter too much. What really matters is the aftermath, when we try to get a government formed. And so let's talk about that. How can we get a government? The answer is, if you look at the polls, we almost can't get any government at all. I've been listening to Netanyahu speak 3 times a day in political rallies, and now he's been adding Facebook Live chats. I have to listen to all of them for my work at the Jerusalem Post. And over and over and over again, Netanyahu says Benny Gantz can't form a government without the Joint List Arab Party. What Netanyahu neglects to say is that according to the same polls, he can't form any government. There are anywhere between 54 and 57 Knesset members that are in Likud and its 3 allies on the right, Yamina, Shas, and United Torah Judaism. That's not the 61 that Netanyahu needs. There are 61 members of Knesset who say that they don't want Netanyahu to form a government. But the joint list is not willing to join any government because of the collective responsibility that they don't want to have of the Israeli government deciding to attack their brothers in Gaza. And if you want to hear more about that, you can listen to the show that we did where we interviewed the head of the Balad party, Matanas Shchada, ahead of the April election here on Inside Israel Today. If a government can't be formed by Benny Gantz either, that's a majority of 61, then what can happen? Well, the only government that the polls currently show that can be formed is a minority government. All that would have to happen would be for Blue and White, Labor Gesher, Meretz, and Yisrael Beitenu, those 3 lists, to get 1 more seat than the right bloc of Likud, Shas, United Torah, Judaism, Yamina, and then have support from the outside, from the joint list. They're not willing to join the government, but they are willing to prevent it from falling. That, of course, also would not be free. Israel would have to pay a price for that. But it wouldn't be a security price. All those people saying that they demand to be able to make decisions about whether we go to war, maybe about whether we implement any kind of part of the Trump plan, I think they're exaggerating a little bit. What they're mainly demanding is to have more equality in what their towns look like. If you look at Arab towns in Israel, they don't look nice. They don't look as nice as Jewish towns. It's not because of racism. It's because the Arab parties haven't been willing to join a government. And what happens is the coalition governments divide up the spoils among their constituencies. And so they don't get because they are not there when the money is distributed. So Arab towns don't look like Jewish towns. Arab roads don't look like Jewish roads. Arab infrastructure doesn't look like Jewish infrastructure. But it's not racism, it's politics. But if they would be part of the coalition from outside, then that could change. Funding could go to them in return, and that's not so controversial. I interviewed earlier this week, I interviewed a researcher from the Israel Democracy Institute named Asaf Shapira, and he explained to me what a minority government would look like. If we have a government where that would be made up of blue and white, Labor Gesher Meretz, the Yisrael Beitenu party of Lieberman, with the joint list party supporting it from outside, what he explained to me is that technically it could work. He said a minority government is not a government of paralysis. It's a government that relies on support from outside. It's less acceptable in Israel, but in other countries it's very acceptable. Shapira conducted a study of governments in Europe's 29 democracies from 1945 to 2010 and found that 1/3 of them were minority governments. There are even countries where minority governments are the norm. 89% of the governments in Denmark during that time have been minority governments, and they're also common in Spain, Norway, Sweden, Romania. Our listeners who are in Canada have been screaming at me for the last few minutes that there's currently a minority government in Canada. Trudeau has not gotten a majority over there. Our listeners in England have been shouting at me, we just had a minority government. Theresa May had a minority government that lasted until a few months ago when she was replaced by Boris Johnson, and then he went to an election. So it happens around the world, and it's legitimate around the world, and they're somewhat functional around the world. I was wrong when people asked me earlier, I thought you needed 61 members of Knesset for a lot of things. But it's not true. You don't need 61 members of Knesset to form a government. You don't need 61 members of Knesset to appoint ministers. You don't need 61 members of Knesset to pass almost any bill. Not even a basic law that are the forerunner to a constitution that may never be written. What you need 61 members of Knesset for is to change a current basic law that has a particular stipulation that it can't be changed without a majority of 61. For instance, the Jewish nation-state law. The Jewish nation-state law has that stipulation. So if you want to change that law to make it apply also to the Druze, you need 61 members of Knesset for that. Then again, I think the Arab Party would support that, so that wouldn't be a problem either. So you don't really need 61. You can have a minority government. And it can even be legitimate, perhaps even more legitimate than the caretaker government that we've had since December of 2018, which is limited in the decisions that it can make and has already actually been toppled by itself. So I just want to clarify, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying a minority government would be a good thing. I'm not endorsing it. That's all I need is listeners writing, Ari and Jeremy, saying, Gil Hoffman is in support of minority government. He wants the joint list to be part of the government. He wants Ayman Odeh to be our Minister of Defense. No, I did not say that. There have been no endorsements of parties on Inside Israel Today. Go back and listen to every show that there's been. Try to find it. You're not going to find it, not on any of the shows that have been on of Inside Israel Today, on the Land of Israel Network, or on the Voice of Israel before. We don't tell you how to vote here. Other shows on the Land of Israel Network, they might do that, and that's okay for them. But no, I'm not endorsing the joint list. I'm just saying that a minority government could technically be formed, unlike any other government, according to the current polls, and could actually be functional. So that's how you form a government in Israel currently, except if the coronavirus changes the makeup of the voting tremendously, if it really does become that game changer, which, of course, we don't want it to be. Corona, go away. Don't come again another day. We don't want you here in Israel, and we don't want you anywhere for that matter. We'll have another show next week when it'll be only 6 days before the election, when I'll have to have my producer hold me down because of my excitement and enthusiasm. This has been Gil Hoffman reporting from Jerusalem. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Josh Haston, host of Israel Uncensored here on the Land of Israel Network. Tune in every Monday to hear the latest news coming from Israel, plus interviews with top Israeli politicians, media personalities, and activists, all doing their part to counter anti-Israel propaganda and BDS. Don't miss a minute. Be sure to stream or download all of the amazing programming from our wide range of hosts here at the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com.